Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new Doctor Who video where we are just 24 hours away from the return of Doctor Who, I guess for one night only, in the Easter special Legend of the Sea Devils. So yes, we've been waiting, well, what, 4 months or so since New Year's Day for another episode of Doctor Who. This, of course, sees the penultimate episode of the Jodie Whittaker era with the return of the Sea Devils, which is tremendously exciting. And yeah, in this video, I just want to kind of run through everything we know so far about it, all the little hints we've had from trailers, from interviews, just anything we can try and work out about this episode in preparation for tomorrow, and yeah, where it may lead us. Because as I say, it's been a bit of a wait, and it's going to be an even longer wait after this episode before the Centenary special, which will be the next one to come October. But I think there's been a fair amount of hype and excitement looking forward to this story. It feels like the last kind of, although it is a special, it feels like the last more normal episode of Doctor Who for probably quite a long time, given that we've got the Centenary special in October, which is going to be something completely different. And then we've got whatever Russell is putting together for the 60th anniversary next year, which I don't think is just going to be a fairly normal episode of Doctor Who, whatever he does. So it's quite possible that we're actually about 2 years away from another more normal episode like this. So I think in many ways we need to try and kind of enjoy it for that reason and in that way, because we're just not going to see this sort of thing for a very long time in the world of Doctor Who. So what do we know about Legend of the Sea Devils? Well, obviously the title tells us it's got the return of the Sea Devils. We first saw them back in 1972 in The Sea Devils, and they were last seen in Warriors of the Deep with the Fifth Doctor in 1984. So it's been 38 years since we last saw them and 50 years from their first appearance. So I feel like it's been one of the most kind of wanted returning monsters of Doctor Who, certainly in more recent years. There's been lots of rumours for years about, are they going to turn up in this story or in that story? I remember Praxeus was the big obvious story where everybody thought the Sea Devils were going to be in it, and then they weren't, and the story wasn't very good, and it was all a bit of a letdown. But finally, Chris has kind of, gone, actually, we're doing this thing that's set, with pirates, Chinese pirates set in the sea and all that kind of thing. Let's throw the Sea Devils in there, make them Sea Devil pirates, basically. I think the lead Sea Devil in this story has a hat, a sort of pirate hat at some point. They're sword fighting with Sea Devils, like they're really, going all in on the Sea Devils, which I'm so excited to see. And based on the costumes and the images we've seen in the trailer and the promotional photos, like it looks like a really kind of good representation of what they originally looked like. They've really stuck with that original design, of what was pretty basic with a string vest and things. They've really run with that and not tried to do something, upgrade it too much, which to an extent we saw the Silurians to, a lesser good effect in my opinion. And I do like how when the Sea Devils are turned up on in the TV show, we've kind of seen a different sort of Sea Devil every single time. In the original story, they were kind of just the standard, just the Sea Devils, and then in Warriors of the Deep they were kind of the warrior class version of Sea Devils that were kind of just like the sort of brutes for the Silurians in that story. And then here they're taking on the role of sort of pirates of some form, which is really cool. And I just like that we're getting different aspects of this creature every single time. I think the taking on the pirate role is going to be really interesting when we also meet these Chinese pirates and then throw the Doctor and co into the mix as well. I feel like it's going to be such an interesting combination there. Now, we've seen from the trailer that visually the story looks very impressive. I think there's clearly going to be a lot more scale to the story than what we saw with Eve of the Daleks. As has come out recently in the interviews that Chris Chibnall has done, it was basically a necessity to have a very small scale New Year's Day special in the end. And his sort of original plan for a very big Dalek story at New Year's Day had to be thrown out, and Eve of the Daleks was written. Kind of a money saver, because it seems like that essentially the BBC asked Chris Chibnall and the Doctor Who production team to produce this extra story in the Centenary special, but didn't give them any money with which to do so. Now, obviously, they didn't want to lose the episodes they were already going to be doing, and so they basically had to try and make 3 specials for the price of 2, including Jodie's last story in that. And so that's why we ended up with the very small scale Eve of the Daleks, which was kind of a money saver to be able to then put some money into Legend of the Sea Devils to a lesser extent, and then to a larger extent into what the Centenary special is going to become. And I think that situation and reason also explains why this story is only 47 minutes long. Of course, we're kind of used to specials being at least an hour long, and I don't think there hasn't really been an episode of Doctor Who in New Who that has been called a special and then been anything less than like 56 minutes or something. It's always been the kind of hour and 5 hour and 10 minute long special. But the fact is, this story is only 47 minutes, and yeah, when I first saw that, I was a little bit like, that's a shame. But I think I can understand why they just simply didn't have the budget to stretch it and, pumped a lot of that money into what we're going to get with the Centenary special. And it's not always about quantity, is it? I mean, I feel like so many stories could be told, with really good quality over a shorter space of time. Sometimes episodes have been too padded out, probably more so in the classic series, I suppose, than New Who. But yeah, I don't want to like write it off and say it's going to be a disaster because it's missing another 10 minutes. I would not be surprised if at the end of the story we'll go, oh, it was great, but it really could have done with an extra 10 minutes to wrap it up or something like that. I feel like it's kind of inevitable, but I feel like you could probably describe that about half of New Who episodes where an extra 10 minutes and they would have been perfect. But yeah, I'm still excited to see what they can bring in even a slightly shorter runtime. And we also know that the idea of bringing in the Sea Devils was originally planned to be a part of Series 13 before COVID was a thing. I think there was originally going to be some form of a Sea Devil story. Whether it's going to be quite the one that we're getting now, I don't know, but certainly there was something in there that was then dropped with Doctor Who Flux, and then with the extra special there was the opportunity to be able to bring the Sea Devils back into a Doctor Who story, which I think is tremendously exciting, and I'm really looking forward to that. So what else do we know about this story? Well, obviously we know it's set in the 19th century and focuses on this idea of Chinese pirates. Unfortunately, I'm not really a historical expert on that period of history, but I do like that Chris Chibnall Doctor Who is once again focusing on slightly lesser known historical figures. I think it's the figure of Madame Ching, I think it's her name in this story, where, you know, throughout Chris Chibnall's era, he'd kind of liked to focus on slightly lesser known historical figures like Nikola Tesla, for example, or Joseph Williamson. I know Rosa Parks is a pretty big one, but sort of apart from that, it's often been that slight focus on smaller and, you know, historical figures that could really have a light shone on them. I think that's really, really one of the great strengths of what we've seen throughout the Chris Chibnall era, and in general his historical stories have been some of the best of the era, so I really feel like optimistic from that point of view that given this is a historical setting, I think that really just lends into the way that Chris writes his Doctor Who. Alongside that we also have Ella Road, who I believe is a playwright a bit more, but she was asked to come alongside and co-write this story, which I think will also add to the, you know, I feel like Chris has often worked best writing alongside somebody else. We saw with, you know, Maxine Alderton in Village of the Angels, Mallory Blackman with Rosa, so just bringing in that other writer that has sort of an extra perspective, I guess, a little bit extra to add to it, I think can really make the difference to the story. And so I feel like that's just really going to help glue the whole story together by having those couple of writers there working on it together. Yeah, I think that'll hopefully enhance the story. Of course, outside of the main plot and the Sea Devils, which I think is just going to kind of be a fun and exciting adventure, I feel like this is going to be the last sort of fun Doctor Who, you know, simple, fun Doctor Who story for a while, as I've said with Anniversary Special and the likes. Not that they're not fun, but just they're quite different. Whereas here, you know, it's very much just going to be a big romp of an adventure, I think, with, you know, the Doctor and co facing off against Sea Devils on pirate ships and having sword fights and all that kind of thing. Which is just great, fun, exciting Doctor Who. And I think that's going to be the bulk of this story, but of course there's going to be some sort of tackling of the longer running narratives of this era of the show. Of course, the main thing that everybody's going to be focusing on is the 13 and Yaz's relationship, the Phasma relationship, and how that's going to be developed in this story. And we've had a few little hints at it through various interviews about this episode. We know that it's going to be addressed in some way. That's what both, I think, Mandip Gill and Ella Road have said, is that it will be addressed in some form in this story. Now, they talk about the fact that it's kind of going to be left unresolved in this episode, and so I feel like that there's going to be some conversations about it. Maybe the Doctor and Yaz will have a conversation about it, I don't know. And kind of leave it at a point where maybe Yaz lets the Doctor know her feelings, but the Doctor doesn't quite know how to feel or deal with that situation. We've seen throughout this era, and the character of this Doctor is a very socially awkward character. So I feel like if they were to have that kind of deep conversation in that way, that the Doctor wouldn't really know how to react, even if. And it seems quite likely that she does share some of the same feelings as Yaz, but I just don't think she'd really know how to respond to it properly. So I almost imagine a slightly sort of awkward conversation where the Doctor doesn't quite know what to say. And so it's kind of like the feelings are out there, but it's left a little bit open and unresolved. And I'm sure it's inevitable that that's going to play into the end of Jodie's era. It's going to play into the end of Yaz's character, however that may be. I feel like that's got to be intertwined into it, it's their relationship. And so I think that, yeah, it will get mentioned, it will get tackled. There will probably be a conversation between them towards the end of the story, you know, either in a bit of, you know, filling up the middle part while something else is going on that takes a bit of time, or it'll be a TARDIS scene at the end of this story, or sitting on the beach after they've saved the day or whatever, having a conversation about it. And I feel like that's kind of all we're likely to get from that in this story. Through the various interviews, it's been quite hard to gauge how much of a sort of reference to regeneration there's going to be in this story. Like, obviously there's no allusion to us, this is the penultimate episode of the era, so like it would seem odd if it was completely ignored in this story, and I don't think that's going to be the case. But whether there's anything, you know, as obvious as the U turning up at the end of Waters of Mars, or, you know, the woman saying he will knock 4 times and then you're going to die and stuff like that. I don't know if there's going to be anything quite as overt as that. I guess we kind of had that with the time entity at the end of the Vanquishers going, you know, watch out for the Mars or your masters or something like that. You know, obviously foreshadowing the return of the Master, which was inevitable. But I do wonder whether there's going to be a huge amount more apart from, you know, the Doctor just sensing that her time is coming to an end, because I feel like that's what the Doctor does in New Who. They always kind of feel it's about to come when the end is approaching for them. So I kind of think that in general this episode is going to be quite light in tone. It's going to be a much more of just fun, action, excitement, classic Doctor Who adventure. But then underneath the surface, maybe there'll be a little bit more of a foreboding tone and a bit more, you know, just of the Doctor unsure, concerned about the future and the end of her life. And I suppose the other question is, where is this story going to leave us? Because obviously, you know, often in the past, the kind of penultimate episode has cliffhangered or led into the final episode of a Doctor's era in some way. You know, it was a 2-part episode for Christopher Eccleston. The Waters of Mars led directly into the End of Time 2-parter with the U turning up at the end and, you know, the Doctor realising he got it all wrong and stuff. I guess Matt Smith's was kind of more separate, but that's because it was the 50th anniversary special at the time. And then obviously with Capaldi's last 3 episodes, they very much led into each other through that experience. So I do wonder, is the Master going to turn up at the end of this story? I know some people have said one of the promo photos looks like it could be the Master's TARDIS interior. I'm kind of inclined to think that the Master's not really going to be any part of this story. I would sort of be surprised if he turned up at the end of it, especially through the interviews with various cast members. They kind of talked about how, you know, it's mostly like a standalone adventure that you can get on board with it if you haven't seen all the recent episodes, or, you know, it's the first episode, you can just jump into it. And I feel like whenever the cast and crew say things like that, it strongly implies that we're not suddenly going to jump into, oh look, the Master's back, here's the start of the next adventure, and then, oh wait, we're cliffhangering it. I just don't think that's going to be the case. As much as if I was writing it, of course I'd do a massive cliffhanger into the final episode. I think it's a great idea personally, but I feel like, you know, they're aware that it's 6 months until the next episode. I just don't really see it. I feel like, you know, there could be a hint of the Doctor going, oh, something is coming for me, there's something bad on the way, blah blah blah, I can sense it, I can feel it, whatever. For, you know, foreboding shot of the Doctor, cut to Sting, credits, whatever. I just don't think we're going to see the Master on Sunday. I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong, because I feel like it'd be much more exciting to throw the Master at the end of this episode. We know he's turning up, so let's just do it and give us a big cliffhanger to lead into that last episode. I don't know, the Master turns up and steals Yaz somehow or something, teleports her away. I don't know. Something like that could be really exciting and leave us on a real, you know, unknown going into the centenary. But I'm kind of more inclined to think it's going to just have the whole main story will happen, then either during it or at the end of it there'll be a bit of Yaz and the Doctor chatting about their feelings and stuff, and then it'll be the Doctor sensing something bad is coming, and then end of story. And then the one very final thing to note is, what will we get after the episode has ended? Will we get a full trailer for the Centenary Special? Will we get a title for the Centenary Special? Certainly Matt Strevens in a convention a couple of months ago said there would be some form of teaser trailer for the Centenary Special at the end of Legend of the Sea Devils, whether that's a full, you know, 45-second actual trailer, or whether it's just a 10 seconds of the Master and that's it. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I feel like there's a pretty good chance we'll get the title of the episode. I was thinking back to the end of Series 12, where obviously we had The Timeless Children, which aired at the beginning of March, and then we won't get another episode until New Year's Day, but they did put the title of that story on screen at the end of it, calling it Revolution of the Daleks. So I'm kind of inclined to think that we'll get a title for this and some form of teaser trailer, but whether it really tells us anything we didn't already know, I'm given the way that BBC have been doing marketing on this era, I feel like it's going to be a 10-second shot of the Master, and then it'll be the big, well, the Master's coming back for the Centenary Special, which we all already know. And it will kind of just be nice to have a title so I don't have to keep calling it the Centenary Special, because I feel like I've spent the last year saying that. It'll be nice to actually just be able to call it what it is. But I don't know. We'll see. That's kind of one last bit of excitement we'll get, even when the credits are rolling, of what are we going to get about the next episode. So yeah, overall, I'd say I'm really, really looking forward to this episode. Of course, the Return of the Sea Devils is tremendously exciting. I think they're great villains, and I think they're going to be really well realised on screen in this story. I think it's just going to be a lot of fun and excitement. I just really want to kind of enjoy it for the story that it is, rather than thinking too much bigger picture or anything, because we've got months to do that after this episode. So I feel like I'm just going to really embrace it and enjoy it. I'm really hopeful for some more development of the Doctor and Yaz's relationship. And you never know, there might be a hint to the Centenary Special in there as well. But guys, please do let me know in the comments below, what are your predictions? What are your thoughts? What are you most excited for ahead of this story? Is it the Sea Devils? Is it just the story? Is it the Doctor Doctor and Yaz. What do you want to see from Legend of the Sea Devils? But that, guys, is just about it from this video. Please remember to hit that like button, that subscribe button if you're new here, follow me on Twitter at EMS_Productions, and I'll be back again very soon. There's going to be reviews and discussion videos about the episode, of course, so keep checking my channel for lots of new videos around Legend of the Sea Devils. But until then, it's a very warm goodbye.